Hey guys, I keep this stuff because when you try to talk to somebody, you've got to have proof of what the heck you're talking about. That's why I started collecting this stuff years ago. Uh, this is about some things that have happened in the United States that people either they didn't hear about it or they just overlooked it. Now this here was a bombing survivor talks about trial in Philadelphia. I want you to see this. It's from 1985. They ended up destroying, the government destroyed 61 homes in May 1985. They dropped, they used excessive force. They dropped a bomb from a helicopter onto the MOVE's roof and they burnt 61 homes down. Here you got Gordon Kahl. We're going to get to him later. There's an ugly history of police state tyranny. They even made a VCR tape on it. It's called Death and Taxes. One's citizens fight for freedom against the IRS. We'll get to this later. I'll get some other things. Here's a lady. This is in Illinois. 23-day standoff in Illinois between police and a widow heats up a debate about government power. And we'll get to her because they were trying to use the thing about mental health. So we're going to get to Donald Scott here. This happened October 2nd, 1992. Shot in his home, shot to death on his 200-acre ranch in Malibu, California. Okay, we're going to get to this right now. We'll start out here and then we're going to branch out. And this is from American Survival Guide, May of 1995. By now most of you know that Donald Scott is dead. He died at 9 o'clock on October 2nd, 1992, shot to death at his home on his 200-acre trail and ranch in Malibu, California. Scott's Killers was one of the 30-person task force led by Los Angeles County Sheriff's Deputy Lieutenant Richard DeWitt, and including representatives from the Los Angeles Police Department, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the California National Guard, and the National Park Service, all dressed in ninja-style garb, lately so popular among rampaging law enforcement agencies. Their caravan of more than a dozen cars and unmarked utility vehicles entered the ranch from an open gate on Mulholland Highway in the Santa Monica Mountains of Ventura County, about a mile from the LA County line. Armed with a search warrant to seize marijuana plants being cultivated on the property, raiders poured into the rustic wood and stone ranch house, alarming and restraining Frances Platt, Scott's 38-year-old wife, a Texas redhead whom he had married July 21st, 92, after they had lived together for a year. Scott, who was roused by his sleep by his wife screaming, "Stop! Who are you? Please don't shoot me!" He rushed into the living room with a .38 caliber revolver over his head, with the muzzle pointing towards the ceiling. According to his wife, the raider said, "Put the gun down 3 times rapidly." Los Angeles Police Deputy Lieutenant DeWitt, in a telephone call to Captain Larry Waldy of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Narcotics Bureau in Whitner, made shortly after the killing, says, "I told him to put it down. He had it pointed up in the air originally. As he brought it down, he was kinda pointing towards the deputy." At that moment, 3 shots were fired by 2 of the raiders. One missed a wiry, barefoot, t-shirted, jean-clad Scott, penetrated the living room wall, but 2 9mm struck his upper chest, dropping him on the spot. He laid in a pool of blood next to a sofa. So what's the big deal? Yet another raid to further America's war on drugs? But wait, there's some problems. Donald Scott was not a drug lord. He was heir to a fortune that came largely from European-based chemical company built on the large legacy of his grandfather's remarkable profitable sales of Scott emissions, and despite the search warrant, the basis for which he was allegedly A federal agent claiming that he saw a marijuana growing operation while conducting aerial surveillance without the aid of binoculars at 1,000 feet above the surface. And of course, a tip from the reliable unnamed informant issued the previous day by Ventura County Municipal Court Judge Herbert Curtis III. No drugs or drug producing or manufacturing, no paraphernalia, not even a single item of contraband was found after they killed Scott and searched his property for hours. Task forces hate it when that happens. They've done some pretty outrageous things during their fiascos. In this matter, however, it seemed that there was more law enforcement fraud than incompetence. Despite Lasco's efforts to justify the raid, both before and after, the evidence was bogus from the beginning and cannot be denied. Following a 5-month investigation, Ventura County District Attorney Michael Bradbury concluded that the raid's true motive was a plan to acquire Scott's $5 million ranch. And when they did this, then they get 80% of the proceeds and they're returned to the local law enforcement. The Ventura DA report found that the deputy who swore out the affidavit for the search warrant used false information to do so, then led the multi-agency assault team to the isolated ranch in hopes of finding drugs. The report notes that the raiders were instructed to search for any drugs, not just alleged marijuana, that would justify a forfeiture. It seems like Mr. Scott had refused on several occasions to sell his property to the state. The Bradbury investigation found out that the raid was staged in order to seize Scott's ranch. Evidently, the Lasco had obtained an appraisal of Scott's property, had made marginal notes about comparable land values for surrounding properties, and it had all been included in this pre-raid briefing. If that wasn't enough, a state narcotic investigator and federal forest ranger who participated in the raid indicated that the seizure of Mr. Scott's ranch was discussed in the sheriff's pre-raid briefing. During the raid and substantial searches later, DAA agents were standing by ready to seize the ranch under federal forfeiture law that would have invoked had drugs been found. Had that occurred, even absent of a discovery of drugs on the property, Mr. Scott, if he hadn't been killed, he might have even gotten his property back. Accordingly to some reports, most such illegal seized properties have not been returned. This is typical example of how acquisition-hungry law enforcement agencies, usually using informers, operate, and what happens with that result. Informers often themselves are convicted felons who are trying to win reduced sentences. Juries frequently don't believe them and acquit the accused, but the police get to keep the property anyway. Steve R. Mudd, who earned $4.65 an hour for his undercover work in Kirksville, Missouri in 1989 and 1990, fingered 35 people who he said, sold drugs. Mugg, who didn't wear a hidden microphone, insisted on working alone. Taking Mudd at his word, police searched homes and made several arrests. All the cases fell apart when Mudd had recounted details in court that contradicted his unwritten reports. Well, we're seeing all kind of, our sacred havens being invaded. California, the state in which Donald Scott lived and died at the hands of state law enforcement agents or their counterparts, constitutionally acknowledged the right of self-defense. California Constitution, Section 1, all people are by nature free and independent and have unalienable rights. Among these are enjoying and defending life, liberty, and acquiring possession and protecting property and pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness and privacy. When a rowdy horde of masked men stormed into Scott's home and grabbed his wife, whose screams awoke him, it was reasonable for Scott to believe that they were in grave danger. Indeed, cops or not, they were. Even after he began to comply with the armed intruder's demands to drop his weapon, they killed him. Donald Scott was right to believe he was in mortal danger. Dead right. California forfeiture laws expired at midnight, December 31st, 1993. Reinstatement is being advocated by several politicians, among them Governor Pete Wilson, Attorney Daniel Lundgren, Speaker of the Assembly Willie Brown, and others of their kind. Now you understand a little bit more of what's going on in the world and how they do it. You know, one of our most important tenets of our constitutional form of government is we do not have debtor prisons. In America, people are not supposed to go to jail because they owe money. They aren't supposed to be killed because they didn't pay taxes. Our system is set up so that all claims are handled civilly. Ever wonder why this portion came to be called civil? It's because the other portion, the criminal portion, is the one that's supposed to be associated with violence and such. When someone owes money, one is supposed to pursue a claim against them in a civil system. No one is supposed to be jailed for money debts, even those who are allegedly owed to the United States government. Thanks for watching, guys. I just wanted this to come to light. We need to get rid of civil forfeiture laws. We need to get rid of the no-knock warrants. People are being killed for no more than the sake of some greedy son of a bitchin' politician. And that's Fuzzy's word. Thanks for watching.